Welcome to this week's edition of The Countdown with IEBC. Last week we had Commission Vice Chair Lilian Mahiri Zaja. Today she's back to talk about issues of gender and minority issues entrenched in the Constitution. Stay tuned.
Inaleta mabadiliko na mbinu mpya za uchaguzi yenye wadhifa wa mipaka. Chagua Kenya unayoitaka, usirudie yale makosa.
Welcome, Lilian.
Thank you.
Good to have you again.
Yeah, nice to see you again.
Yeah, well, viewers, as you can see, our guest today is none other than the IEBC Vice Chair, Lilian Mahiri Zaja. We had her last week, and we have her here again today to talk about gender issues and among other issues in this show. As a follow-up to last week, there was a question about how does the Commission intend to monitor malpractice on the part of politicians, especially the use of public resources.
Yeah, as you know now, the law empowers IEBC to investigate and prosecute any electoral malpractices or any illegal practices during the electoral process. And the law is quite clear that candidates or public officers or any person shall not use public resources for campaigns or any political activities. And it is clear that 3 months before elections, no public officer shall use public resources for any, initiation of new development projects, as a campaign, tool or something of the sort.
Where do you draw the line? If I'm a cabinet minister and I come in a chopper to open a water project under my ministry?
Actually, the law is also very clear. It exempts the president, the vice president, prime minister, cabinet ministers, and those at the county level from engaging in any such activities or using public resources, because remember that they are in office until a new government is formed.
Indeed.
So they actually have to use public resources during that period. So I think, as you say, yeah, it's a challenge drawing the line.
And also, don't you sense some discrimination? How will you deal with that?
Even the law is clear. You will not initiate any development projects. So if there was an ongoing project 3 months before elections, then that is fine. Indeed. But if it is using public resources to start any new projects 3 months before elections, then the IEBC will step in and prosecute those who are culpable.
Well, very well. In today's show, I want us to really focus just a little more on gender and special interest groups. And we will listen to what the members of the public have some questions for you. So if you follow me this way, we'll be able to gain some perspective from yourself, even as we listen to these questions.
My question is, what opportunities are available to the youth of Kenya during the next general election?
Nauliza wale wako physically charged watasaidiwaje kwa hii election inakuja?
Just before we address these questions, let me ask you one and ask that. How momentous is the next general election in regards to gender and special interest groups?
It is quite momentous because for the first time in our electoral system, we have a new paradigm shift where women are being accorded the opportunity to go for elective positions. And remember, in the past, it was first past the post and very competitive and too rough for women. The political landscape was not favorable for women at all. And the youth were totally not in the picture. Persons with disabilities and even workers were never in the picture. And this time around, the Constitution clearly even talks about equality of rights in the Bill of Rights. And Article 27 also provides for the fact that the government must put in place legislative as well as administrative measures to ensure that those who are disadvantaged in the past, those who suffered injustices in the past, are addressed during this time we are implementing the Constitution. And this includes women, the youth, persons with disabilities, and workers as well. And these measures will also include affirmative action. And another thing, Effie, is that we have Article 27.8, which clearly provides that not more than 2/3 of all elective positions will be occupied by the same gender. So that again accords women especially another opportunity in the Constitution to seek elective positions.
How are the physically challenged taken care of in this process?
In the new electoral system, Parliament will be made of the two houses. We'll have the National Assembly and we shall have the Senate. Now, at the National Assembly level, we'll have 290 elected members from the 290 constituencies. And then we shall also have 47 women who will be elected from the counties. And we shall also have 12 nominated members from the political parties, and these will be in proportion to their membership in the House. And this is where we are going to have special interests, which will include the youth, persons with disabilities, and workers. And this provision should be read together with Article 90, which clearly provides for the party lists to embrace gender parity, where there'll be one man and one woman in the representation. And then we also have a Senate, which will consist of the 47 elected members, senators, from the counties.
Yes.
And then we shall have 16 women members who will be nominated by parties, again in proportion to their representation in the House. And we shall have the youth being represented by one man and one woman, and persons with disabilities also being represented by one man and one woman at the Senate level.
Well, even just before you get deep into the representation of numbers, how friendly is the process to a physically disabled person?
The Constitution is clear that whatever administrative measures IEBC takes, we must ensure that we take into account persons with disabilities and people with special interests. And IEBC is now looking at its regulations to ensure that people with disabilities, people with special needs, like those in prison, people in the armed forces who will not be, able to vote on that day and will be accorded maybe special opportunity to vote, are also taken care of. Remember, they must be facilitated to vote by IEBC. So we shall be putting in measures to ensure that these categories of people, persons with disabilities, are not disenfranchised. That also includes other people. There will be people who will be challenged in so many other ways. The blind,
mothers, for example.
Expectant mothers, of course, we could have them voting in advance or much earlier than other people.
Or given priority at the queue.
Yes, yes.
One young person asked a very interesting question here. What is the composition of the minority interests, like us, the youth? So you probably wanted to know how many opportunities are there in all these elected and nominated positions for the youth.
In the National Assembly, the Constitution has accorded them recognition. Remember, we are talking about a past which the youth were not recognized. But this time around, they have been given recognition. And the Constitution further provides that Parliament will enact legislation in addition to what I had already talked about, the Articles 97 and 98, representation in National Assembly and Senate.
So specifically to the youth, they've got an opportunity in the National Assembly and in the youth.
Yes,
how many,
the special interests.
How many in each?
They will have representation from the 12 members that are nominated by political parties. Remember, we'll have 12 members at the National Assembly to represent special interest groups.
Of which one of them is youth?
Youth is one of them.
National
and it will
Assembly,
be in proportion to the strength, of the parties in the House.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And in the Senate, it's also one?
One man, one woman representing the youth. Yeah.
Who do you categorize as youth?
Well, youth are defined in the Constitution.
I feel young at heart. Do I?
And of course, you look so young anyway. But actually we go by the definition in the Constitution. Article 260 is clear that the youth encompass those people who have attained 18 years, between the age of 18 years and not more than 35 years of age.
Not
so
more
that's
than 35.
The youth. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was going to add that Article 100 of the Constitution requires Parliament to enact legislation on how the promotion of representation for women, the youth, persons with disabilities, the ethnic minorities, and the marginalized will be in future. Because remember, we don't have the full legislation now, but Parliament is required to enact that law that will promote representation of all these special interest groups.
There's a question, a very interesting question here that I want you to answer when we come back from the break.
Okay.
And this is, why are women seemingly being favored by getting special consideration? Somebody somewhere is not too happy.
Okay.
And, let's take a short break and we'll be back and address that question and other issues in a bit.
Chagua Kenya unayoitaka, usirudie yale makosa. Unayoitaka, usirudie yale makosa.
Nataka kuuliza kwa nini wanawake wanapendelewa katika kwenye katiba hii mpya na pia kwenye uchaguzi huu unakuja?
We've looked at the past and we've seen how politics has become very competitive. The ground was not level for all players for a long time and nobody played by the rules. The Constitution now introduces and recognizes the role women can play in the democratic process. And that is why women are now being afforded that opportunity to enable them to step up and get that confidence that they can also lead. And we've seen a lot of cases where women, very good women leaders, go through a lot of rough times in politics and they have to step down or they are forced to step down, either through some cultural practices or even through political thuggery. And of course, as they say in Kiswahili, mwenye nguvu mpishe, men are usually stronger than women. And so this time around, the Constitution has recognized the role women can play, and there is gender equality. We are embracing the principle of gender parity, and that's why this time around, women will look like they are being favored. But I think actually women also want to be elected. They want to fight for positions. They don't want to just to be given nominated positions because they argue that even with the nominated positions, they are not felt. They do not go out there to be representing a constituency in particular. Yes. And when you are representing a constituency, you get much more, clout, and you are able to entrench yourself as a real leader who espouses democratic principles. So this time, hopefully, this the question of elective positions now gives women that opportunity to step out and also be counted among great leaders in this country.
Well, how would you respond to somebody who then asks, what happens to merit? What happens to merit, where we are saying that a person of a particular gender needs to hold this office or needs to hold X number of positions, and yet they're not qualified. In a case like that, what direction do you take?
Yeah, I know people will ask about merit, qualifications, but I think even those who are given nominations, they do qualify and they merit those positions. And we have had examples of women in the past who have been nominated and later on were able to hone their skills in leadership and they are now fully elected members of parliament. So sort of in a way, even as they are given those positions to be nominated members, this gives women that leverage they really long desired, or that is good for them to step up and go up for elected positions. So it's really not a question of, it's not a question of merit, but giving them an opportunity also to be seen as people who can lead in society despite all the challenges.
Let me take two questions, and then we can address those in a bit.
Will gender and special interest groups require any academic qualifications for them to be nominated in parliament?
Nauliza ya kwamba kama pati yangu haitakuwa registered, je, nitafanya nini? Na ninataka kusimama ili niendeleshe agenda yangu na watu wangu wanifahamu kuwa niko on the race.
Do you place any tag on academic qualifications in any of these?
Yeah, the law is clear that anybody seeking elective position, other than being a Kenyan citizen and you know, showing proof of citizenship, they must have a post-secondary school qualifications. So you must have you know, gone for training, for a course, and you know, over 6 months training or degree course. But you must have post-secondary qualifications. And this IEBC is looking into the regulations to refine that so that it is clear who qualifies and who does not qualify.
Allow me just to dwell on this a bit. So, the youth.
Yes.
If my party nominates a youth, he needs to have post-secondary education.
Youth are nominated, remember?
Yes.
Yeah, these are not for the elected.
These are not
They
for
are not elected, yes.
Okay, okay. Let's look at both of them separately. So for the nominated, my party could nominate a youth regardless of his or her academic qualifications.
Yeah, remember we have already defined the youth.
Yes.
Somebody who is 18 years of age. Surely 18 years in our current school system.
The assumption, but that is post, and the same applies, and the same applies for the disabled.
For the disabled, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Somebody had asked, I'm in a party. What happens if my party does not meet the minimum required threshold? Can I come out if my party is denied? And you're working with all those constitutional timelines, remember? Say 45 days to present this. So I don't have much time to jump out. Can I then come back and say that the mistake that my party made was not my mistake? Say that I still want to run, and if you deny me, then I can sue you.
You
Do you see a complication?
No, not really, because what are you talking about? Meeting the requirements for registration?
Yes, as a political party.
Yeah, and you know our deadline is this month, 30th of this month. Parties must meet those requirements for registration. So there is still a lot of time. And if the person opts out as an independent candidate, he has to submit his papers, or he must not have belonged to a political party 3 months before the elections. So there'll be enough time for him to think whether to go it alone, because if he has no party, then he has to show that 3 months before elections, he did not belong to any political party. And if the party does not meet the requirements, which are constitutional, remember, under Article 90 and 91, then, 91 and 92, sorry, then the party will not be registered.
Yes.
It will stand deregistered, actually, such that the person now, if he is serious, he wants to contest, he has to think of either joining another party and ensuring that he also meets the requirements of the law, that he was in that party, you know, long before elections. Or if he is going as an independent candidate, then 3 months before elections, he should show he was not a member of any party.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, very well put. Well, the long and short of it today is that you all have an opportunity to be in one of the houses, the upper house or the lower house. Gender issues and special interest groups issues have been taken care of, and we will continue discussing these issues even in the next episodes of Countdown with IEBC. Thank you for staying tuned. Please do get in touch with us through our contacts that are now scrolling at the bottom of your screen. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and you can even send us an email on info@iebc.or.ke, and we'll be able to get in touch and address your issues in subsequent shows. And thank you for joining us. And Lilian,
Thank
it
you.
was a pleasure for having you for the past 2 shows.
My
And
pleasure
hope that you
too.
can come again to enlighten us further even as we get closer to this day.
I'll be glad to.
Thank you.
Thank
Karibu
you.
sana, and thank you for watching. I'm your host.
Uchaguzi yenye wadhifa wa mipaka. Chagua Kenya unayoitaka, usirudie yale makosa.